Welcome to Living Your Senior Life, the podcast where we explore what makes life after 50 fuller, healthier, and more fun. We're Mark and Debbie, and today we're talking about something that might just take you back to your childhood. We're getting on our bikes. In this episode, we're diving into why cycling is one of the best things seniors can do for their health, what the latest research says, how e-bikes are changing the game for older adults, and how to find the right bike for you. Whether you haven't been on a bike in decades or you ride regularly, this one's for you. So grab a cup of coffee, tea, or your water, get comfortable, and let's get started.
You know, when we picture getting older, society hands us this incredibly stubborn, almost cinematic script.
Right, it's very predictable.
Exactly. It's a lot of rocking chairs, maybe some, gentle water aerobics, and just a whole lot of moving very, very carefully.
Yes, the expectation is just a slow decline.
But what if the secret to a fiercely independent later life doesn't actually involve slowing down at all? Like, what if it looks a lot more like flying past a line of stopped traffic with the wind in your face?
It is a really compelling image. And, what is truly fascinating is that the medical and sociological research is increasingly telling us that this is exactly what we should be aiming for.
Wow, really?
Yeah, we are witnessing a complete paradigm shift in how we approach mobility as we age.
Well, today, we are testing that exact theory for you. Welcome to the deep dive. We are pulling apart a freshly updated, just incredibly comprehensive guide from Living Your Senior Life.
Which was just published today, actually.
Yep, today, March 17th, 2026. And it's titled, Cycling for Seniors, Benefits, Bikes, and Safety. Now, if you are listening to this right now and thinking, my knees pop just walking up the stairs, there is absolutely no way I am pedaling a bicycle stick around.
Please do, because it's not what you think.
Our mission today is to cut through all the intimidating, carbon fiber jargon of the cycling world and give you a curated shortcut. We want you to understand why getting on a bike is arguably the ultimate life hack for aging.
It really is a life hack. We're going to dig into the surprising health science, decode all that gear, and
we're even going to wade into the real-world comments section of this guide to see what actual riders are experiencing. Because let me tell you, it gets wild in there.
It does. But whether you are prepping to get back in the saddle yourself, or maybe you're trying to help an older relative find a new hobby, this deep dive will equip you with exactly what you need to know. And I think the crucial part of this exploration is connecting those practical, day-to-day tips to the broader picture of human longevity. Because looking closely at the source material, this is not just a buyer's guide for bicycles.
I know.
It's really a blueprint for fundamentally rewriting the playbook on physical and mental aging.
Okay, let's unpack this playbook, starting with the why. Because before we get anywhere near discussing bike frames or battery life, we really need to understand the physiological impacts.
Right, because the science here is genuinely surprising.
It really is. The data in this guide completely challenges our assumptions. For instance, the guide highlights a 2023 scoping review. And just to be clear, for anyone who isn't spending their weekends reading medical journals...
Which is most people, I imagine.
Right. A scoping review is basically when researchers cast a massive net over all the existing studies on a topic to map out the overarching themes and just see what the consensus is.
Exactly. It's a broad overview.
And this review showed that cycling significantly reduces fat mass, it lowers blood pressure, and it actually drops cholesterol in older adults.
Yeah, and beyond those baseline metabolic improvements, there is a major long-term study out of Japan referenced in the guide that adds this crucial sociological layer.
Oh, right, the one about life expectancy.
Yes. This study followed older adults and found that cycling improves both general health and overall life expectancy, functioning as a vital lifestyle companion.
A lifestyle companion. I love that phrasing.
It's very accurate. But the key detail is that this was especially true for non-drivers.
Oh, that makes sense.
Right, because when someone surrenders a driver's license, their geographic and social footprint instantly shrinks to whatever is, within walking distance.
Which might just be a few blocks.
Exactly. A bicycle expands that radius from maybe 1 mile to 5 or 10 miles. It prevents the isolation that often really accelerates cognitive and physical decline.
That makes total sense. You are essentially giving someone their world back. And the cardio benefits supporting that new independence are massive. The guide points to data from PubMed Central showing a significantly lower incidence of cardiovascular disease and type 2 diabetes among regular cyclists.
Which is a huge win for preventative health.
Huge. But The part that really caught my attention was the impact on joints. The Arthritis Foundation officially notes that cycling increases joint mobility.
Right, which sounds counterintuitive to a lot of people.
Totally. I always assumed any repetitive leg motion would just grind your knees to dust.
Right.
But they highlight it as a low-impact alternative to the hammering your joints take from running. I look at it like WD-40 for your knees and hips.
That analogy actually aligns perfectly with the biomechanics of what is happening.
Really?
Yeah. Running involves recurrent impact loading. I mean, every single time your foot strikes the pavement, your joints have to absorb a force that is multiple times your body weight. Over decades, that takes a massive toll on cartilage. Cycling, however, removes that violent impact because the bike frame is bearing your weight.
Right, you're sitting down.
Yes. But your legs are still moving through a full, continuous range of motion. And that specific smooth motion actually stimulates the body to produce synovial fluid.
Which is the WD-40.
Quite literally, your body's natural WD-40. It lubricates the joint capsule without grinding the cartilage down.
Wow. But here is where I really have to push back on the data.
Okay, let's hear it.
There is one statistic in that 2023 scoping review that completely tripped me up. The guide claims that cycling reduces both the fear of falling and the actual risk of falling in everyday life.
Yes, it does.
Wait, balancing on a wobbly two-wheeled machine actually reduces the risk of falling down when you are just walking around your house? How does putting yourself in a precarious balancing situation prevent falls?
Well, what's fascinating here is how we misunderstand the precise mechanism of balance. We tend to think of balance as a static state, like a statue.
Right, like just standing still.
Exactly. But balance is a dynamic, continuous process of micro-adjustment. When you ride a bicycle, your brain and your body are engaged in a constant high-speed dialogue. You are making thousands of tiny, unconscious corrections with your core muscles, your hips, and your legs just to keep your center of gravity over the tires.
So you're basically taking your central nervous system to the gym.
Precisely. You are training your proprioception.
Proprioception?
Yeah, that's your body's ability to sense its location, movements, and actions. You are building the exact type of reactive balance, leg strength, and fine-tuned coordination that you need to suddenly catch yourself if you, say, trip over a rug in your living room.
Oh, wow. I never thought about it like that.
Right. The bike forces your neuromuscular pathways to stay sharp and highly responsive. Paradoxically, mastering that wobbly machine builds the underlying structural and neurological stability that keeps you firmly on your feet when you're just walking down the street.
That is incredible.
Yeah.
But, we have to acknowledge the very real psychological elephant in the room here.
The fear factor.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We could talk about synovial fluid and proprioception all day, but the biggest hurdle for older adults usually isn't their heart or even their joints. It's confidence. It's a psychological fear of physical limitation.
Yeah.
It's that voice in your head saying, what if I ride 3 miles away from home, hit a massive hill, and I am just too exhausted to pedal back?
That is what we call range anxiety, and it is an entirely valid fear. I mean, if you get stuck 3 miles from home on foot, you can sit on a bench or call a cab.
Right.
If you get stuck with a bicycle, you are suddenly wrestling a heavy piece of machinery back to your house.
That sounds miserable.
It is. And this psychological barrier is the exact reason we are seeing an absolute explosion in a very specific type of technology for seniors.
The e-bike revolution.
Yes.
According to the guide, e-bikes are the fastest growing category for older adults right now. They feature something called pedal assist, which makes hills manageable and allows riders to essentially dial in their workout intensity.
It's a game changer.
And the research in the guide shows that even low levels of pedal assistance build confidence and improve self-esteem in older adults dealing with mobility limits.
The pedal assist mechanism is a brilliant piece of engineering, honestly. Unlike a motorcycle or a scooter where you just, twist a throttle and sit there.
Like a moped.
Right, like a moped. A pedal assist e-bike usually uses a torque sensor. It measures exactly how hard your foot is pushing down on the pedal.
Oh, that's smart.
The moment the computer senses that you are struggling, say you hit an incline, it instantly tells a small electric motor to provide a proportionate boost. You are still working, but the crushing strain of gravity is basically neutralized.
Here's where it gets really interesting to me. I like to think of e-bikes not as cheating, which is, the tired argument you always hear from cycling purists.
Oh, constantly.
Right, but rather like those moving walkways at the airport. You know what I mean?
Yes, that's a perfect comparison.
They don't do all the work for you. You still have to walk, but they amplify your effort so you can go a massive distance without panic. You feel like a superhero striding past the folks on the regular carpet. You still get the cardio, but you don't get the exhaustion.
I love that analogy because it captures the exact psychological shift taking place. The e-bike motor doesn't just push the bike, it removes the psychological barrier of the return trip.
Yeah, you know you can always get back.
Exactly. When you completely eliminate the fear of that uphill battle on the way home, you empower someone to expand their geographic horizons safely. They aren't trapped by the topography of their neighborhood anymore. A steep hill is no longer a border wall to their independence.
That is so freeing. And the guide gives us the exact specs you should look for if you are shopping for an e-bike, because they're definitely not all created equal.
Not at all. There's a lot of variance.
You want a bike that weighs under 50 pounds, because some of the models on the market are built like literal tanks, weighing 70 or 80 pounds.
Which defeats the purpose if the battery dies.
Exactly. If the battery dies, you do not want to be wrestling an 80-pound machine. You also want simple controls and a battery range of 30 to 40 miles.
That 30 to 40 mile range is the absolute sweet spot. It provides enough of a buffer that the range anxiety we just talked about, the fear of the battery dying, doesn't simply replace the physical anxiety of pedaling.
Right. It gives you plenty of wiggle room.
It gives you a massive margin of error for a typical neighborhood ride.
So if the technology is this empowering and the health benefits are this profound, why do people still hesitate to go to a bike shop?
Well, the imagery is intimidating.
It is. Usually it's because when we say the word bicycle, people immediately picture themselves awkwardly climbing onto a 21-speed racing bike, those curved drop handlebars,
Yeah.
Bending completely in half just to reach the brakes.
The Tour de France look.
Exactly. But the right gear completely changes the experience.
Yeah.
We need to demystify the hardware so people know what to ask for.
The gear is almost always the initial barrier to entry, but the good news is that it is the easiest variable to control once you understand the mechanics of what you're buying.
So true. Our source outlines some crucial features that are just non-negotiable for senior comfort. Number 1 on the list, step-through frames. The guide calls this the absolute most important feature for easy mounting.
Yes, step-through is essential.
You do not want to be doing a karate high kick over a top tube just to get on the thing.
That high horizontal top tube was originally designed for structural rigidity in competitive racing. It prevents the frame from flexing under extreme torque.
Right, which most of us are not producing on a Sunday ride.
Exactly. It serves absolutely zero functional purpose for a casual rider going to the grocery store. But it introduces a massive fall risk during mounting and dismounting, especially for anyone with limited hip mobility. Eliminating that top bar is step 1 in making the bike accessible.
Step 2 is an upright riding position. This saves your neck and lower back from craning forward. You also want a low standover height so your feet can rest completely flat on the ground when you stop at a crosswalk.
Very important for stability.
Yep. Throw in a wide cushioned seat and simple 7 to 8 speed twist or trigger gears. The guide specifically mentions twist gears, and I assume that's because they're much easier to operate than traditional thumb shifters if you have arthritis in your hands. You just roll your wrist instead of relying on finger strength.
That is exactly the mechanism at play. And furthermore, you simply do not need 21 speeds to navigate a flat neighborhood or a paved park trail.
It's just overkill.
It is. The complexity of 21 steeds requires multiple derailleurs, which often leads to drop chains, mechanical failures, and, frankly, user frustration. Mechanical simplicity translates directly to reliability.
So let's look at the specific types of bikes the guide recommends to put all these features together. We have cruisers, which are great for flat neighborhoods. They have those wide handlebars and a super relaxed seating position.
Very comfortable.
Then there are hybrids, which are a bit more versatile. They mix road bike frames with mountain bike tires. I'm guessing hybrids are the go-to if you're dealing with different types of terrain.
Yes, hybrids are excellent if your local riding paths transition constantly from smooth pavement to packed gravel or dirt. They give you a wider tire for better grip and stability without the heavy, sluggish, shock-absorbing frames of a full mountain bike.
So they live up to the name.
They live up to their name by blending the best of both worlds, yes.
But what if balancing on 2 wheels is simply off the table? The guide dives into 3-wheelers too. First, we have standard adult tricycles. These solve the balance issue completely, but the guide includes a very specific warning. You must corner gently because you cannot lean into turns.
That is a critical physics problem to understand. On a 2-wheeled bicycle, you lean your body weight into a turn to counteract the centrifugal force trying to push you outward. An adult tricycle stays flat on the ground. You steer it like a car. If you take a corner at high speed and try to lean, the tricycle will not lean with you, and the opposing forces can actually flip the trike over.
Oh, that sounds dangerous.
It can be. You have to brake before the turn, not during it.
Good to know. Then there are recumbent trikes. The guide calls these the absolute easiest and most stable option. The rider is sitting low to the ground in a chair-like seat with their legs extended forward.
They look incredibly comfortable.
They really do. It takes all the pressure off the lower back. Though because you are sitting so low to the pavement, the guide highly recommends adding a tall visibility flag so cars can actually see you over their hoods.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, choosing a bike isn't just a consumer purchase. It is a tailored prescription for your specific physiological needs.
I love that. A tailored prescription.
Right. A recumbent trike is a structural solution for someone dealing with chronic lumbar spine pain. A standard step-through hybrid is a mechanical solution for someone with limited hip flexibility. The machine must adapt to the user's limitations, not the other way around.
Exactly. The guide briefly mentions some niche options too, like stationary bikes for bad weather, fat tire bikes for really rough terrain, and folding bikes if you live in a small apartment. Which actually brings me to a hilarious but very real panic moment from the guide's comment section.
Yes, the comment section is always where the marketing promises collide with reality.
It is the Wild West down there. We have a user named Terry Diane who left a very panicked comment. She writes, "Wait, I thought the EOS Saga 7 was a folding bike. I better go back to the seller and see if the folding was the basket and not that the tricycle itself folds."
Oh, no.
Right. And Debbie, the author of the guide, responds and confirms that yes, it was just a folding metal basket attached to a completely rigid, non-folding tricycle.
It is a humorous interaction, but it highlights a critical cautionary tale about the deceptive terminology used in online cycling marketing.
For sure.
When a retailer uses a keyword like folding feature, a consumer naturally assumes the frame hinges in half so they can put it in the trunk of their sedan.
Which is exactly what Terry Diane thought.
But it might just mean a flimsy wire basket collapses. If you are ordering online without deeply understanding the specifications, you might end up with a 60-pound rigid tricycle stuck permanently in your apartment hallway because it doesn't fit in the elevator.
Let Terry Diane be a lesson to us all. Read the fine print and understand the jargon. But this actually leads us perfectly into our next reality check. Having the perfect, confidence-boosting, highly customized bike is fantastic, but it does not make you invincible.
No, it doesn't.
If you're going to put this knowledge into practice, you have to be aware of the blind spots, both the literal hazards on the road and the hidden physiological gaps in the exercise itself.
And there is one major physiological gap that the guide makes a very deliberate point to emphasize, because cycling is often presented as a cure-all.
Yes. The big caveat. Cycling is not a weight-bearing exercise. Because you are sitting down on a saddle and the bike frame is carrying your body weight, cycling does not build bone density.
This is a vital biological mechanism for aging populations to understand. Our bones are living tissue, and they require mechanical stress, literal physical impact against the force of gravity to stimulate osteoblasts.
Osteoblasts?
Yes, those are the cells responsible for building new bone tissue. Because cycling is so smooth and removes that impact to protect your joints, your bones do not get the biological signal to fortify themselves.
I look at it like this. Cycling's like eating all your vegetables but forgetting your protein. It's fantastic for you, but it's not the whole meal.
That's a great way to put it.
It is doing absolute wonders for your cardiovascular system and your joint mobility. But if cycling becomes your only form of exercise, you have a gap in your regimen. You must add walking, jogging, or light strength training to actively protect your skeletal health.
You have to supplement the cardiovascular workout with a structural one. They serve two entirely different biological purposes.
Absolutely. The guide also hits on some incredibly practical safety prep to keep you out of the hospital. They offer a quick pre-ride checklist. Check your tires. And the guide specifically notes to actually look at the PSI number, which stands for pounds per square inch, printed on the sidewall of the tire, and use a gauge.
Yes, do not just squeeze it.
Right. Don't just squeeze the tire with your hand and guess if it's full.
Squeezing the tire is highly deceptive. Even at 20 psi, which is dangerously underinflated for most road bikes and will easily cause a flat tire if you hit a pothole, the rubber will still feel rock hard to a human hand.
Oh, really? I definitely do the squeeze test.
Most people do, but you have to use a mechanical gauge to ensure the pressure matches the manufacturer's rating on the sidewall.
You also need to test your brakes before you are moving, make sure the chain is lubricated so it doesn't snap, and do a quick physical scan for rattles. As my old mechanic used to say, a rattle today is a detached component tomorrow.
Vibrations loosen bolts over time. It is a simple law of physics. A 5-second visual inspection prevents a catastrophic mechanical failure at 20 miles per hour.
Then there are the road rules. The guide is very clear. Ride with the flow of traffic, not against it. Use crosswalks, but explicitly warns. Never assume you have the right of way just because you are in the white lines. Making eye contact with drivers is everything.
Eye contact is crucial.
And you need to know your hand signals. Left arm straight out means you're turning left. Left arm bent up at the elbow at a 90-degree angle means you're turning right. Left arm bent down means you're stopping.
It is an old school language, but it is universally understood. And for anyone wondering why we use the left arm for a right turn, it dates back to before cars had electronic turn signals.
Oh, I never thought about that.
Yeah, the driver could only stick their left arm out the window to signal other cars. If they bent it up, the car behind them knew they were turning right. Bicycles adopted that same standard so drivers would instantly recognize the movement.
That is a great piece of trivia.
Communication on the road is your first line of defense, but your absolute last line of defense is your safety gear.
Helmets. The guide is entirely uncompromising here. Helmets are non-negotiable. And not just any helmet. It must be CPSC certified.
Which is very important to verify.
Right, that stands for the Consumer Product Safety Commission, meaning the helmet has actually survived rigorous impact testing in a laboratory and hasn't just been molded out of cheap decorative plastic by an unknown online seller. And you need it even for a short ride down the block.
This raises an important question for anyone listening. Are you treating safety as an afterthought?
Probably, honestly.
There is a dangerous psychology at play, particularly with seniors, where they rationalize the risk. They think, oh, I'm just going down the street to the bakery. I'm taking it very slow. I don't need the helmet today.
It's that false sense of security. You feel safe because you aren't going fast, so you assume a crash wouldn't be violent.
But physics does not care about your intended destination or your forward speed. A slow speed fall from a stationary upright position, say simply losing your balance at a stop sign and tipping over sideways, can generate an immense amount of rotational force when your head arcs down and hits the pavement.
Terrifying.
The helmet isn't solely there for a high-speed collision with a vehicle. It is designed to protect your skull from the unforgiving reality of gravity and asphalt from a height of 5 feet. Skipping the helmet just for a short ride is a massive, potentially life-altering miscalculation.
That is a sobering but completely necessary reality check. However, the guide does mention a fantastic way to ease that general fear of falling, which data from Boston University notes really does increase significantly with age. And that is utilizing a social buffer, riding in groups.
Humans are inherently pack animals. When we ride in a group, we naturally feel safer.
Safety in numbers.
Exactly. From a practical standpoint, a group of 3 or 4 cyclists takes up significantly more visual space on the road, making you vastly more visible to distracted drivers. You also share the cognitive load of navigating traffic and watching for potholes.
That's a good point.
But perhaps most importantly, that social connection is a massive combatant against the isolation and depression that often accompany aging.
So what does this all mean for you listening right now? If we pull all these threads together from today's deep dive, the traditional narrative that aging means slowly retreating to the couch is officially retired.
It's obsolete.
Cycling past 60 or 70 or 80 isn't just a nice, quaint idea. It is a profoundly effective tool for longevity. By leveraging the right technology, specifically step-through frames that eliminate physical mounting barriers and e-bike pedal assist that completely neutralizes the fear of fatigue, you can fundamentally reclaim your physical mobility and your social connection. You just have to pair that technology with strict safety preparation, a CPSC certified helmet, and maybe a little bone-building walking on the side to cover all your bases.
It truly is a comprehensive blueprint for vitality.
Thanks so much for riding along with us today. Pun absolutely intended. If this episode inspired you to dust off a bike or maybe look into an e-bike, we'd love to hear about it. Come visit us over at livingyourSeniorLife.com, where you'll find our full cycling guide with bike recommendations, safety tips, and everything we covered today. And if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend who might be ready to get back in the saddle. And as always, until next time, take care of yourself and live your best senior life.